And it's the last one for the week. This is Business Morning. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ladi Williams.
And I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. Well, we'll begin from the global oil market space as oil prices climbed this morning to their highest levels in a year, extending a run of strong gains this week, boosted by the continued commitment of producers to hold back crude supply and positive signs of economic growth in the United States. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures jumped 51 cents to $56.73 a barrel after touching a high of $56.75, the most since January 22 last year. The benchmark contract is on track for a weekly gain of nearly 9%, which would be its biggest weekly gain since October. Brent crude futures climbed 45 cents to $59.28 a barrel after hitting a high of $59.32, its highest since February 20 last year. Brent is on track to rise 6% this week. Markets were encouraged by stronger than expected orders for U.S. goods in December, pointing to strength in manufacturing and hopes for swift approval by lawmakers of President Joe Biden's proposed $1.9 trillion coronavirus aid plan. Chinese demand for crude oil is also helping support the market, as shown by industry tracking two tankers of North Sea crude oil heading to China for March 22 and March 24.
And back here, Royal Dutch Shell says it plans to review its onshore oil operations due to continued problems with theft and sabotage. And this comes as the oil giant reports a net loss of $21.7 billion in 2020 after the coronavirus pandemic slashed global demand for crude. Shell Nigerian onshore joint venture SPDC has sold about 50% of its oil assets within the last 10 years. The company has also lost a Nigerian High Court case, which could lead to a $44 million damage for spills, which was caused by sabotage.
In the meantime, about $108 billion have been generated by the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company since it started operations about 21 years ago. An official of the NLNG, Mrs. Ayono Fatai Williams, made this known at a briefing with members of the House of Representatives Committee on Gas. Giving a scorecard of the company, Fatai Williams explains that the NLNG had given out about $35 billion in dividends to its shareholders and paid $8 billion in taxes to the Nigerian government within 2 decades of its operation. She also mentioned that the company has delivered 5,000 LNG cargoes around the world and delivered 23 dedicated LNG ships to ensure a smooth operation with installed assets worth $11 billion.
And the impact of COVID-19 pandemic is still taking its toll on small and medium enterprises, but the federal government is promising to sustain its intervention to the sector to harness its potential. The Minister of State for Industry, Trade and Investment, Mariam Katagum, who gave the assurance at the launch of 2 interventions for the MSME sectors in Abuja, explains that while the Guarantee Takeoff scheme targets a total of 100,000 MSMEs with a total grant of between 50,000 naira to 100,000 naira, the general MSME grant targets small businesses who are unable to access previous interventions for the sector. Do take a listen.
In line with the plan to fully rejuvenate the economy, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, the federal government is set to roll out the last 2 components of the MSME Survival Fund. And these are the Guaranteed Offtake Scheme and the General MSME Grant. Under these components, the portal will open from 11:59 p.m., let's just say midnight, on Tuesday, 9th February 2021, and it will remain open till Thursday, 18th February, for the Guaranteed Offtake Scheme and General MSME grant applications. All interested MSMEs can go directly to the portal and register for either of the schemes free of charge. It is important to note that the purpose of the Guaranteed Offtake Scheme is to stimulate direct local production by enabling 100,000 MSMEs across the country who are in the production sector. They will be enabled with funds to produce post-COVID lockdown stimulus products. The scheme will give preference to products produced in reasonably sufficient volumes in each state of the Federation, which have the proven propensity to create jobs and have a multiplier effect on the surrounding economy.
And as Nigeria seeks to diversify its economy and alleviate poverty, there is one subsector in the creative industry that the federal government may not be paying attention to, and that's the comedy skit. A new study by an opinion research think tank, Africa Polling Institute, titled Skit Economy, an assessment of digital content creators in Nigeria, lends support to the fact that skit comedians can further showcase the country's massive talents and enhance digital content creativity in the overall interest of the economy. The executive director of the Africa Polling Institute, Professor Bell Ihua, joins us next. We have Professor Bell Ihua now join us on the show from our Abuja studio. Thank you very much, Professor Ihua, for joining us on the program. Good morning.
Good morning. My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So your report is titled Skit Economy, an assessment of digital content creators in Nigeria. Why is this important?
Thank you very much, Chimezie. We know that the arts, entertainment, and leisure sector of the economy contributed about 2.3% to the economy as far back as 2016. We also know that this sector generated about $5.5 billion in 2019 into the Nigerian economy, and it has been projected by 2023 the sector will generate about $10.8 billion. That's not child's play. But if we unpack that a bit, taking Nollywood alone, Nollywood contributes about $600 million to the Nigerian economy every year, and it employs over 1 million people, excluding pirates. So this is not one sector we can neglect, especially when we're talking about economic diversification and poverty alleviation. But we've also observed an uptick in the society. If you go on social media, everywhere you look at, you see comedy skits coming up. And we thought it was important to investigate that sector and understand a bit more of the backstory of what is going on and what is happening within the sector. So we decided to interview Nigerians, citizens, to find out, is there really a market for this sector? Do Nigerians watch comedy skits? Who are their favorite comedy skit artists? And also, where is the money in comedy skits? We also interviewed some skit comedians themselves, a number of top skit comedians like Lasise Leno, Taoma, Mr. Macaroni, and a number of the guys to also understand from their own perspective what is happening in this sector. Why is there a rise in comedy skits in the society? And that's what this study is about.
Anyway, let's look at some of the reasons you identified why comedy skits have become a phenomenon in the society. You mentioned youth unemployment as number one. How is that?
Okay, thank you very much for that. There were two sides to this. So there is the citizens' response and there is the response of the skit comedians themselves. From the citizens, they have the opinion that the rise we have experienced in the skit comedy section today is as a result of the fact that there's a rise in youth unemployment. Of course, we know unemployment at the moment is 27.1%. If you add underemployment to that, we have at least 55.1% of our population unemployed or underemployed, and the bulk of this demography are young people between the ages of 18 to 35. So yes, the rise in unemployment is leading to skits. Also, there is a huge need for entertainment, and so that's also leading to that. There are also Nigerians who have the opinion that the rise in mental health cases also have led to this need for people wanting to watch comedy skits. But on the part of the skit comedians themselves, they identify two major reasons why comedy skits are on the rise in the society today. The first is the sheer abundance of creative talent and energy in Nigeria. The skit comedians have the opinion that there's so much creativity in the country looking for avenues to be used. And the second reason is the uptick of social media. on the part of creativity, when you watch the kind of skits coming out of these comedy skit artists, they keep getting better and better by the day. We take an example of someone like Taoma. She has over 5 characters. The Taoma character, her father, Mama Tao, her younger brother Tayo, and all of that. You take a character like Lasisi Elenu. Lasisi has almost 10 different characters. He has the Lasisi, the young ranter. He has Sinzu Money, the Yahoo boy. He has Zadi, the billionaire boyfriend of Nike. He has Dr. Koka, the family therapist. Dr. Bankole, the poet. He even has Atomic Bomb, the charge and bail lawyer. So and when you watch this, you see that these guys are not just innovative, they're not just creative. The content is original. And what we are saying is that this sector has thrived with very little to no support. So imagine that the sector receives the right support that it needs. The growth within the sector can only be exponential.
Now, your study also found that platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, I mean, a host of others, Twitter and all that, but Facebook, 50%, Instagram, 34%, the channels through which these comedy skits, are being watched. Why?
Thank you very much for that. So the bulk of this, the study found that 67% of Nigerians, 2/3 of Nigerians, watch comedy skits. They watch comedy skits, 1, because they are funny and entertaining, 2, because they are quite informative and pass on useful messages, and 3, because they use them as a form of stress relief to relieve themselves of daily stress. But then, the platforms they watch them on are the top: Facebook with 50%, Instagram with 34%, YouTube with 18%, WhatsApp with 15%, and Twitter with 10%. Now, let's not forget why. The issue is that when you look at the population of Nigerians on Facebook, there are almost 30 million Nigerians on Facebook. As a matter of fact, in the third quarter of 2019, there were 27.7 million Nigerians. By the end of 2020, COVID happened in 2020. People were bored, staying at home. So that figure rose dramatically. Now, Facebook has the bulk of the population because on Facebook, you have the elderly, you have the middle ages, you have the younger demography. However, on platforms like Instagram, you have more of the younger demography. So yes, and Instagram has about 16.7 million Nigerians. YouTube has about 19 million Nigerians. WhatsApp has about 23.5 million Nigerians. So you see these differences in playing out in terms of the numbers. But I think for us, what's big to see is that those skit comedians that are big on Facebook and Instagram were the skit comedians that came up top. So we had the likes of Brother Shaggy, came first with 35%. The McAngel comedy team came second with 26%. Mr. Macaroni came third with 15%. Taoma came fourth with 12%. And Lasisi Elenu came fifth with 11%. And what we are saying is that Shaggy alone, Brother Shaggy alone, has almost 30 million followers on these two platforms. McAngel Comedy alone has 26 million followers cumulatively.
Okay, Professor.
McAngel Comedy has 15 million. Emanuela alone has about 3.8 million. So that tells you the sort of markets that exist and where the money is being made. Okay,
looking at your top 3 comedians, what stood them out?
Interestingly, we believe that 2 things. One is the originality of their skits, their ideas. The ideas are original. Every Nigerian can relate with them. And not just that Nigerians can relate with them, these guys are also consistent. And that's the second aspect. They are consistent. The McAngel Comedy team, for example, releases a fresh skit every Friday. Brother Shaggy releases a fresh skit every week. Same with Debo Adebayo, also known as Mr. Macaroni. So, and we see this play out also in the sort of endorsements that they receive. Brother Shaggy recently received endorsement from Globalcom and Revolution Plus. Emanuela has been endorsed by Disney Films, Dabo Toothpaste, Loya Milk, and the rest of them. So how is the money made? First, the money is made off social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of that. That's first. But secondly, money is made from endorsements because as they get popular and influential, more people begin to come to them to run adverts for them. But thirdly, money is also being made because now people have seen these guys as a new set of influencers in the society. So social media has played a huge role to become a leveler in some ways. In the past, for you to be an influencer, you needed to go and sit around studios for long, carry the bags of producers, beg producers to feature you. But today with social media, the middleman has been cut out. You can have your camera in your house, do a short skit, put it out on social media. If it resonates and people start following you, very soon the producers will start being the one looking for you. So Brother Shaggy gave me a literal example. In 2016, he attended the auditioning of My Wedding Party, but he got there late because of Lagos traffic, and he was disappointed because they told him they couldn't audition him because he came late. So he went back home and thought to himself, what do I do? Let me use my phone to start making skits. He started making skits, putting it out there, and soon producers are the ones looking for him. Okay. So we see a clear trajectory here. You start out making skits. From skits, producers start looking for you. After you start featuring on a few films, you gain a bit of capacity and start shooting your own films. Thereafter, you gain more capacity to shoot very high-quality movies that can go on platforms like Netflix. Then you can make more money.
Yeah. Well, Professor, well, you just have to hold your thoughts there. It will be interesting to know. I'm sure you spoke to these guys, and they must have told you some of their challenges and perhaps what they are looking out for, what they hope even the government and indeed the private sector can actually, do to support them. We'll come back to you on that. Just please stay on with us. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. Well, we're still looking at Skit economy and its potentials in driving economic growth here in Nigeria. And we'll still have with us Professor Bell Ihua, the Executive Director, Africa Polling Institute. Well, Professor, yes, I know you must have had some conversation in the course of carrying out this survey with these comedians and, of course, their producers. Certainly, while doing this and also earning money, they have some challenges they are facing, and I'm sure they have a wish or looking out for something or a help from the government and from the private sector players. So what are these challenges they face, and what do they hope to get from government?
Thank you very much. I think first things first is the realization of the contribution of this sector, which in some ways informal, but contributing quite a lot to the economy in terms of job creation, especially for young people. And we say that because this sector is actually creating jobs. So Woli Agba, for example, employs over 30 people. Brother Shaggy employs 15 people. Taoma employs about 8 people. Lasisi Elenu employs about 8 people who work on their team. For every time you watch that short, less than 1 minute skit, there is a cameraman behind the scene, a sound man, a light man, a concept creator, a location man, a makeup artist, a costumier, and all sorts. So there is an economy around that, and it's got a multiplier effect if it's supported. But in terms of the challenges that the sector faces, I think one of the main challenges is access to finance. Access to finance is a major issue, which, because of the lack of access to finance or limited access, these skit comedians cannot do as much as they want to do. Lasisi Elenu told me personally during the interviews, for example, that on a daily basis, he has at least 100 young people who send him emails to say, oh, Lasisi, we love the great work you do. We want to be like you. We want to learn what you do. Can you mentor us? But obviously, he doesn't have the funds to set up a foundation or set up an academy where he can mentor these people. So we have issues like that. We have cost of production. We have power, sometimes the limited access, lack of power affects them. But I think the big elephant in the room is the proposed social media bill that is out. They are really concerned about the regulation of social media. In some ways, social media is the reason, the threat of that these guys work with. Social media is why they are who they are, and social media is what has made them. So any attempt to stifle social media would definitely affect them, affect their income, affect their livelihood. So these are major concerns that they have. But in terms of what government or private sector can do, is that the creative fund for the funds for the creative sector set aside by some of our development banks need to begin to also consider these skit comedians in their own rights as digital content creators and useful contributors to the economy, so that they can also access funds to either buy equipment, to set up, academies and all of that. Imagine if we have 100 Lasisis or 1,000 Shaggies or 100 Taomas, what it will do to the economy. It will bring in more, foreign exchange into the economy. It will showcase Nigeria more. It will boost the image of this country, because these guys are doing just that. The other day, I got a call from someone in Uganda saying, "Oh, thank you for the great work you're doing. During the lockdown, I found Taoma, Mr. Macaroni, and Lasisi Elenu, and they kept us during the entire lockdown because we kept watching all their skits."
Okay, so talking about this social media regulation and that's the proposed regulation, what's your projection for digital content creators and say in the next 5 years? What are you projecting for the industry?
Good. I have my own personal opinions, but it will be good to get the projections from the comedians themselves. So first of all, Nigerians are of the opinion that the sector will continue to grow. It will continue to grow bigger. It has come to stay. And why? It's because there's a huge market for it. I mean, 2/3 of a population like Nigeria watch comedy skits, so there is a huge market. The sector will continue to grow. But on the part of the digital content creators themselves, they think it's now time to bring in a bit of formalization. There needs to now be copyright laws to protect this creative content, because anytime you watch these guys, they are original, they are fresh, they are witty, they are funny and entertaining. And this is creative content. This is intellectual property. The next step now should be, how can we protect intellectual property so that these guys can continue to earn from their creative talents?
All right. So did you try to find out from them how COVID-19 pandemic impacted their business? How was the business pre-COVID, and how has it been now that we are in the pandemic era?
Thanks for that question. Interestingly, COVID played out to support some of these guys, I'll tell you. Before COVID, in 2017, 2018, there were certain guys who were sort of ruling the airwaves, like William Suchemba, like some of the core comedians like AY. They cut out little skits from maybe AY Live or some of these events. But during the lockdown, people like Mr. Macaroni found their voice. People like Taoma really found their voice. Lasisi Elenu came out strong. And to be honest, Nigerians were at home, were bored, and these guys provided succor, provided such great relief that could entertain Nigerians all day long. So to some extent, they were creating content, putting on social media, what are the social media companies looking for? They want people to remain constantly on their platforms. And if, as the skit comedians, you would help them to have people stay on their platforms, they will pay you for it. So these guys were actually raking in dollars and making good money because their creative content was put on that. But we've seen them to be now the leading social influencers in the country. So when we saw that recently at the NSAS protest, Mr. Macaroni tweets and say, let's meet at Lekki Toll Gate, and 100,000 youths meet there because these guys are the new social influencers. So what we are saying in essence is that government can also partner with these guys for dissemination of information. Because sometimes you find out that government puts out information, it doesn't go out that far, but the moment a Taoma posts a video, It can go viral in an hour and over 1 million people watch it. So this is the power that these young folks, the skit comedians have at the moment. They are leveraging on it not only to bring good, image to this country, to boost the image of the country, but also to make money, to create wealth, and of course to alleviate poverty. And so what we should be looking at is, since we're talking about diversification of the economy and moving the economy away from a mono economy of crude oil, we should start thinking of how can we invest in this soft aspect of the economy? How can we invest in the creative sector such that the creative sector can generate so much income, and in a short while, we can even have up to 10% of our GDP funded by the creative sector.
Okay, looking at other African countries, how would you rate Nigerian skit producers compared to other African countries?
Thank you very much. I think to a large extent, in this sector, Nigerians are the big brothers. And they're the big brothers in the sense that our music, our art, our skits are watched and enjoyed across the African, sub-Saharan African, area. The entire continent looks up to Nigeria, not only to set the pace, but to be the forerunners that will continue carrying the beacon or the torch to show the way for others. And we can say that as a result of what is happening in Nigeria, other countries, artists are now growing the nerves and the capacity to also try out little skits. If you go on social media, now you find out skits coming out of Zimbabwe, coming out of South Africa, Uganda, and the rest of them. This is because they are watching what their Nigerian counterparts are doing, laughing about it, saying this is interesting, and in some cases, just having a little coinage, doing their own local replica of what a Lasisi is doing or what a Tauma is doing. I mean, the beauty of what we see is that these guys are products of the society. So whether it's a Tauma that is depicting a disciplinarian mother who dishes out slaps at the slightest offense, or whether it's a Macaroni who's the rich guy who's trying to take advantage of young ladies, or a Lasisi Elenu who's ranting about everything or anything that is happening in his environment, these are, manifestations of the society we come from. There was a theory I've been wanting to test all this while. What is the makeup of these guys who, create comedy content? And the theory was proven in this study. So the theory was that these people who are comedians, who create this creative content, have very interesting childhoods, and what they are depicting basically is their childhood, part of their childhood. So you see Lasisi, for example, his childhood in Benin, growing up and observing aunties and uncles, is how he came up with the Mama Lasisi thing and Itoha and all this. These are names he grew up hearing and listening to. Yeah. You see Tauma also. When I asked Tauma, she told me specifically, like, the role of her father is the role of her father growing up. Come off it and all of that. Those are some of the terminologies they use, of course, exaggerated with slaps for comic effect. But that's the idea. We are products of the society. The society is their warehouse, if I may use that word, that provides the raw materials that allows them to be able to share comedy. And it resonates. So every Nigerian can watch it and laugh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's look at this. Skit comedy. How much impact does it have on traditional comedians, who host shows and earn big money from ticket sales? We see the likes of Basket Mouth redefining their strategy and embracing the skit economy. Are you seeing any kind of competition there?
Precisely, yes. We see some competition, and that's why you can see, we also observe a trend in the society now, that there's a lot of collaboration happening. So collaboration within or amongst the skit comedians themselves. We've recently seen Shaggy collaborate with Macaroni. We've recently seen Angry Bird, Macaroni, and Lasisi Elenu. The reason why this is happening is because if Lasisi brings his 6 million followers and Shaggy brings his 12 million followers and they add it together, they're almost having 20 million followers. They are making more money. More people are having to see them. Same with the likes of Basketmouth and AY. Many of the productions happening these days, they are now bringing in these skit comedians who have become popular faces, who they realize Nigerians want to see, and they are introducing these guys into the fray. Recently, we saw Kunle Afolayan in his latest production featured Mr. Macaroni. Of course, you know, Kunle Afolayan shoots blockbusters. Once that is out, it boosts Macaroni's image. It also helps Kunle Afolayan to sell his movies. So we see that while there seems to be some competition in the industry, artists are taking advantage to open up for collaboration, such that why should we compete when we can collaborate and we can leverage on each other? I have 12 million followers or I have 20 million followers, and you have the market, you have the talent. Why don't we collaborate? You produce the movie, you feature me in it, my fans and my followers will watch, and we all make money. So we see it as a win-win situation, and we see that trend continuing as the days goes on.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Ihua. It's been a pleasure having you on this show. I mean, skit comedy is not easy to make people laugh, really. So if you think it's easy, go and try it, laddie. Thank you very much, Professor Ihua.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, let's look at the market now. Eddie is still in the red.
Good morning, Timmy. I wish we could laugh a bit about the market, but unfortunately, that's not the case. The profit-taking continued yesterday, and the market was down 0.51% at 41,785.80 points. Now, we saw a lot of profit-taking yesterday, but joining me now to make sense of that is Tajuddin Olayinka, a stockbroker at Valmont Securities. Good morning, Mr. Olayinka. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
We saw more profit taking in the market yesterday, especially on Dangote cement. Can you tell us what drove sentiment in the market?
I'd like to approach it this way. We are in the earnings season, and ordinarily, investors who, wait for what companies will finally declare by way of dividend and other corporate actions. But because, when you trade equity,
I guess we've lost Mr. Olayinka there. Well, while we try to get him back, the market was down 0.51% with the equity cap at 21.858 trillion naira. Now, volume and value were higher compared to the previous trading session. Now, we saw the volume rose by about 24% to 629.41 million units, worth 7.98 billion. Now, value also rose by about 62%, but deals were lower compared to the previous trading day. We had 4,753 deals. And we saw profit taking across sectors yesterday. The banking sector was down 0.31%. You recall that shares like of Zenith Bank and Access Bank were some of the gainers in the previous trading session. Now we saw some profit taking on those stocks because those were responsible for the declines in the banking sector. Consumer goods was also down 0.13%. That was due to declines on flour, mill, Dangote sugar, international breweries, Nigerian breweries. We saw a lot of declines there. Now, the decline on industrial goods, 1.19%. Of course, that was due to the declines on Dangote cement. Like the market says, when Dangote cement sneezes, the market feels it. So that was what happened on industrial goods yesterday. Insurance was down 1.11%. We've seen a lot of declines on that sector, while oil and gas was the only gainer in Thursday's trading session, up 0.32%. The bond market was bullish yesterday. We saw yields decline in that space. Now, the bond market has been bearish in the sense that yields have been on the rise in that space for some time now. But in the last two trading sessions, we saw declines in that space. That market dropped by about 4 basis points, and the yields are currently at 7.8%. Now, across the curve, we saw yields contract on the short and the long end of the curve, while the mid end was flat. There were 33 deals worth 14.79 billion naira. Now, there was some price movement in the March 2036 bond. This was at 188.75 on the previous day. Yesterday, we had it at 138.15. This was at 137.09 and is now at 137.74. So there was some adjustment there. This was at 143.61 and it's at 143.58. In all, we had 33 deals worth 14.79 billion naira. The Nigerian Treasury bills market was flat. We didn't see much trades there. I mean, with the figures we got from FMDQ, we didn't see any trades on that segment of the market. Same thing with the CBN bills. And unfortunately, same things with the OMO market. There was an auction yesterday where it wasn't very impressive, and I hope to get someone from a fixed income trader to talk more about that. But this segment of the market, is not so great right now. We've had yields in the the bond market especially rise, and that sort of drew investors' attention from the equities market to the fixed income market. But then now that yields are dropping again, especially in the bond market, we're still likely to see investors still position themselves, or it's safer to be in the equities market for them at this time rather than the fixed income market. So we'll just keep our eyes out to see what's going on. We'll keep our eyes out to see what's on the radar for what happens in that market going forward. But Chimi, well, I think you will be happy next week with the declines we've seen, especially in the equities market this week. A lot of people are just waiting for next week to position themselves
to
and
do
take
some
advantage.
cherry picking there.
Yes, to take some advantage of those lower prices in there. So Chimi, in case you want to enter the market, I'll say now is the time, to pick one or two stocks. Dangote has dropped over 2%, so
that's
you might want to take advantage of that.
To buy the dip, and then to buy the dip. Perhaps by next week we shall see some of those stocks rising. And as for what is happening in the fixed income market, remember the analysts yesterday said, well, he doesn't think it's going to last. That uptake we're seeing on the bond market is not probably going to last, and we're seeing what is happening in the treasury bill segment of the market. Nothing practically is happening there. So investors are really not happy. If I cannot get anything, why do I have to go into that market? Perhaps until the central bank would have maybe do some kind of tinkering of its monetary policy, perhaps we'll begin to see some kind of change in that segment of the market. For now, I guess the equities is where to go, but allow the profit takers to continue to take profits. It's okay. It's allowed. All right. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we talk to Juliana. To stay with us. Okay, let's do a quick call to London. Juliana is standing by. Good morning, Juliana. Well, the Bank of England is forecasting a 4.2% slump in the first quarter, but expects a rapid rebound of the UK economy later this year, while announcing moves to introduce negative interest rates if the recovery falters. It's the morning after those statements. How much of these have been digested by the market?
Good morning, Chimeze. Well, it's the main topic in investors' minds this morning. And the FTSE all-share opened relatively flat, depending on where you look. I believe we're just about 6 points higher at early trading. The pound obviously rallying stronger. It's been doing very, very well since the Brexit transition took hold. And because the interest rates haven't gone into negative territory, the pound is doing particularly well. I think the Economist's headline really is that there are no negative interest rates planned at the moment. Andrew Bailey said that he would give banks at least 6 months to get used to the appetite. But the fact that all 9 MPC members yesterday unanimously voted to keep QE at 895 billion and interest rates at 0.1%, the appetite for negative interest rates just isn't there as of yet.
Now, some analysts have argued that negative interest rates in the UK are a possibility, but far from a certainty. But the question is, what would negative interest rates mean for UK consumers?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, really. There will be those that enjoy and those that put it out of favour. Negative interest rates, of course, mean that if you're hoarding money, if banks are hoarding money in the central bank, they'll be charged for doing it. And so this is really to encourage banks to start lending to businesses and consumers again. But there are a lot of people in this country that do have a lot of money in the bank. And if you do have a lot of money in the bank, you'll be charged for keeping it there. So there were a lot of conversations British media this morning about whether they should start putting their cash underneath their bed. In other terms, it could be great if you are going for a mortgage, and we know there are a lot of people are trying to get a new house at the moment, then mortgage rates could be cheaper. But then again, HSBC are the first big bank to kind of flirt with the idea of charging people to keep a basic current account. So I think that's why Andrew Bailey, the Bank of England governor, is still a little bit hesitant about whether or not to introduce them just yet. And we're just going to wait and see whether this really good positive vaccine rollout recovery will boost GDP in the second half of this year.
We'll see. Well, it's the last business day in the week. How's it looking like on the corporate calendar?
Pretty quiet corporately in London this morning. I suppose a lot of investors are waiting for the US job data, which is due at about lunchtime. This is going to be a big test for Biden's very first big test. But there was a little bit of breaking news. French Connection, which was a popular retail store about 10 years ago here in the UK. They've been approached by two buyers. At its peak about 10 years ago, it was actually worth about £500 million. It's got a market capitalisation today of about £20 million. So if it does get a new takeover and a new buyer, perhaps, they could be competing with some of their online rivals, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, it's not yet time to say thank God it's Friday, because I'll still see you in the afternoon. Okay, let's talk cryptocurrency. Laddie, what's happening there?
Yeah, Chiwi, it's a party. Thank God it's Friday. Yeah, the crypto party is on.
Yeah.
The altcoin party, as they call it. The market cap is up $1.14 trillion. 24-hour volume, $172.71 billion, up 13%. And Bitcoin dominance at 60.9%. Let's take a look at the price of Bitcoin at early trade at 8 a.m., $37,451, just down 0.63%. In the crypto world, 0.63% is nothing. And 24-hour volume, $67.812 billion. Let's look at the top gainers. ZRX, up 72% this morning. Incredible. This is one of the DeFi projects doing very well today. You know, the funny thing is I spoke to a crypto trader last time talking about this ZRX, and look at it today, up 72%. I don't know if we have Gaius Chibweze on the line now. Hello, Gaius.
How are you doing today?
Hey, Gaius, how's it going?
Amazing, amazing.
I see the alt party is going strong. How are you seeing it?
Actually, since Bitcoin found a bit of stability,
Yeah.
I think all coins are beginning to regain back their strength.
Okay.
So we might be looking forward to another alt season like we had after the bull run of 2017.
Okay, looking at ZRX, this is a DeFi project. Tell us about decentralized finance.
Okay. So there has been a lot of craze about decentralized finance, especially when it comes to lending and staking and the rest. Before now, the whole attention of cryptocurrency was focused on just buying and selling and transferring from one wallet to the other. But the decentralized finance is giving people the opportunity to be able to make other forms of profit by lending, staking, and holding their tokens. So I see it as the future. I see it as the future of the blockchain world, because right now it is opening. It is opening more rooms for people to make more gains from their crypto tokens, other than just waiting for price rise.
Okay, looking at other altcoins now, is it safe to say it's better to hold DeFi projects at this point?
Just like it has always been, it all depends on the particular project itself and the people backing it. Like on a personal level, any project that is backed by Binance, which you know is the number one biggest exchange in the world,
Yeah.
I like to invest and hold some of those projects. I look out for projects that are on Binance chain. So those ones I know, oh, those ones, if Binance is backing them, they already have a big platform already.
Okay.
So
So
it depends on
looking
the project.
So looking at crypto regulation in Nigeria, are you hearing anything about this?
Well, I think the government currently, the government is actually, I don't want to term it that they are confused, but they don't really, there is no headway, there is no proper roadmap as to this regulation. And they're actually missing out. If you noticed, last year, the remittance of dollars to Nigeria actually decreased. The remittance of dollars from Nigerians in diaspora actually decreased. And that is as a result of people boycotting sending dollars. Instead, they are preferring now to send Bitcoin and other types of cryptocurrencies home, and their brothers or sisters or family members can actually just change it on any of the platforms available. So the government is missing out on that. So I think what the government needs to do is to put down a proper framework as to how they can first of all support blockchain projects first. Then before you talk of them even benefiting from it in terms of the regulation.
Okay. All right, guys, what's your outlook for the weekend for altcoins?
Yeah, I'm holding a couple of them. I bought Wi-Fi. I bought Wi-Fi yesterday.
Okay.
I bought CAZ. So I'm looking at taking some profit. I actually took some profit on Sky yesterday. And you saw what happened with Dogecoin.
Oh, yes.
It was crazy.
Elon Musk is here now. Before it was the last bull run, it was McAfee. But now we have Elon Musk. Who else is going to come on board?
I heard that guys like Richard Branson and the rest of them actually looking at also coming in to talking about Dogecoin. But I don't know how sure that is. I just read it somewhere. But I think if those big guys keep talking about Dogecoin, any other crypto, definitely, as you know, it's always to buy the news. So people will always pump it.
All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. Let's hope for a profitable weekend.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So, Chimi, that's it.
Yeah, since it's an alt party, that's what you called it.
Yeah.
Which one should I go for? Ethereum? Dogecoin?
Well, you know,
what else did you call it?
You know, I've been doing some, using some indicators, and I found out that this ZRX is, even though it's up this high, checking the stochastic, it crossed on a bullish trend.
You've always talked about buying the dip. We have to look at the dip now.
Exactly. So it's not bad looking for a pullback and, finding a position.
Okay, let's see how that goes this weekend. It's a market that trades 24 hours every day. So we keep tracking
even on the weekend.
Thank you very much. And, of course, that's it on the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwago.
Thanks for watching. I'm Ladi William.